The morning sun cast long shadows across the gardens of Windsor Castle as Princess Kate walked slowly along the rose-lined pathway. She had come here seeking peace after another difficult week of royal duties and public appearances. The weight of her responsibilities felt heavier than usual today, and she needed these quiet moments to collect her thoughts. Kate wore a simple blue dress and comfortable walking shoes, her hair pulled back in a casual ponytail. She looked more like any other mother enjoying a morning walk than the future Queen of England. The gardens were empty except for the distant figures of security personnel who maintained a respectful distance, allowing her the privacy she craved. As she rounded a corner near the ancient oak tree that had stood on these grounds for over 300 years, Kate noticed something unusual. A small metallic object lay half-hidden beneath the fallen autumn leaves. It looked out of place among the natural beauty of the garden. Her curiosity piqued. She moved closer to examine it. The device was roughly the size of a smartphone, but much thicker, with strange wires protruding from one end. Small red lights blinked in an irregular pattern across its surface. Kate had never seen anything like it before, but something about its appearance made her feel uneasy. She took a step back, her maternal instincts warning her that this was not a toy or piece of garden equipment. Meanwhile, hidden behind the gardener's shed approximately 50 feet away, a figure watched Kate's every movement through powerful binoculars. Lavra Parker Bowles, Camilla's daughter from her first marriage, had been planning this moment for months. Her hands trembled slightly as she held the remote detonator, waiting for the perfect moment to press the button that would change everything. Lavra had always lived in the shadow of her stepmother's royal status. While Camilla enjoyed the privileges of being queen consort, Lavra remained largely unknown to the public, working as a freelance art curator and struggling to make ends meet. The resentment had been building for years, fed by what she perceived as unfair treatment and her father's favoritism toward his new family. She had spent weeks studying Kate's routines, learning when the princess preferred to take her solitary walks in the gardens. The security team was predictable in their patterns, and Lavra had identified the perfect blind spot where she could plant her device undetected. She had even managed to obtain legitimate credentials to enter the castle grounds by claiming to be researching historical artifacts. For an upcoming exhibition, the device Lavra had constructed was sophisticated despite her lack of formal training in explosives. She had spent months researching online, purchasing components from various suppliers to avoid detection. The bomb was designed to cause maximum damage within a 15-foot radius, more than enough to ensure that anyone standing near it would not survive. Kate continued to stare at the mysterious object, her mind racing through possibilities. Could it be some new security equipment that the protection team had installed? Perhaps a monitoring device of some kind? But something felt wrong about the situation. The location seemed random, and she couldn't think of any logical reason for such equipment to be placed there. She pulled out her phone to call her security detail, but before she could dial, she heard footsteps approaching from behind. Kate turned to see Detective Inspector James Morrison, her head of personal protection, walking quickly toward her with a concerned expression on his face. "Your Royal Highness," he said, slightly out of breath, "we need you to step away from that area immediately. We've received some concerning intelligence about potential security threats on the grounds today." Kate felt her heart rate increase. "James, there's something here that doesn't look right. I was just about to call you." She pointed toward the device without moving any closer to it. "Detective." Morrison's face went pale when he saw what Kate was indicating. His years of experience in counterterrorism had taught him to recognize potential explosive devices, and this object displayed several warning signs. He immediately spoke into his radio, calling for the bomb disposal unit while positioning himself between Kate and the suspicious device. "Ma'am, we need to evacuate this area now," he said firmly but calmly. "Please walk with me toward the castle and don't look back." As they began moving away from the device, Lavra realized her window of opportunity was closing. She had planned to trigger the explosion when Kate was examining the bomb more closely, ensuring maximum impact. But with the security officer now on the scene, her plan was falling apart. Her finger hovered over the detonation button as she watched Kate and Detective Morrison walking quickly toward safety. Part of her wanted to abandon the entire scheme, but years of accumulated anger and jealousy drove her forward. She convinced herself that this was her only chance to make the royal family pay for years of perceived slights and neglect. Kate and Detective Morrison had covered about 30 feet when Lavra made her decision. She pressed the button with a violent thrust, expecting to see the massive explosion that would eliminate her target and send shockwaves through the monarchy. Instead, nothing happened. Lavra pressed the button repeatedly, panic rising in her chest. She had tested the remote detonator multiple times during her preparation, and it had worked perfectly. But now, when everything depended on its function, the device remained silent. Unknown to Lavra, Detective Morrison's radio call had triggered an immediate response from the castle's electronic warfare unit. Within seconds of identifying the suspicious device, they had deployed signal jammers that blocked all remote transmissions in the area. It was a standard security protocol whenever potential explosive devices were discovered on royal property. As Kate reached the safety of the castle's main entrance, she turned back to see bomb disposal experts approaching the device with their protective equipment. The reality of how close she had come to serious danger was beginning to sink in, but the most shocking revelation was still to come. The investigation that would follow would uncover not just the identity of the would-be attacker, but also the complex web of family resentments and royal politics that had motivated such a desperate and dangerous act. Lavra remained hidden behind the gardener's shed, watching her carefully planned attack crumble before her eyes. She knew that discovery was now inevitable, but she was not prepared to surrender without making her grievances known to the world. Detective Inspector Morrison coordinated the evacuation with military precision while bomb disposal experts carefully approached the suspicious device. The entire east wing of Windsor Castle was cleared within minutes, staff members moving quickly but calmly through well-rehearsed emergency procedures. Kate found herself in the secure communications room, watching the operation unfold through high-definition security monitors. "The device appears to be active," reported Sergeant Williams from the bomb disposal unit over the radio. "We're seeing electronic signatures consistent with an improvised explosive device. Requesting permission to deploy the robot for initial examination." Kate's hands trembled slightly as she processed how close she had come to disaster. If she had picked up the device or even stepped closer to examine it, the consequences could have been catastrophic. The thought of her children, William, and her parents receiving news of such a tragedy made her feel physically ill. Meanwhile, Lavra Parker Bowles was making a critical decision that would seal her fate. Rather than attempting to escape the castle grounds while the security forces were focused on the bomb, she chose to reveal herself. Walking slowly from behind the gardener's shed with her hands visible, she approached the nearest security checkpoint. "I need to speak with someone in charge," she announced to the armed officers who immediately surrounded her. "I have information about the device in the garden." The officers, recognizing her as Camilla's daughter but treating her as a potential threat, carefully searched her before escorting her to a secure holding area. Within minutes, Detective Morrison received word that they had a person of interest in custody who claimed knowledge of the explosive device. The interrogation room at Windsor Castle's security center was stark and intimidating, designed to encourage truthfulness from those who found themselves seated at its metal table. Lavra sat across from Detective Morrison and Chief Inspector Sarah Chun, the head of Royal Protection Services. Her earlier resolve was beginning to crack under the weight of what she had attempted to do. "Miss Parker Bowles," Detective Morrison began, "you stated that you have information about the device found in the castle gardens. I must remind you that anything you say will be recorded and may be used as evidence." Lavra looked directly at him, her eyes filled with a mixture of defiance and fear. "I built it," she said quietly. "I planted it there this morning and I tried to detonate it when Princess Kate was nearby." The silence in the room was deafening. Chief Inspector Chun had investigated numerous threats against the royal family, But never had she encountered such a direct confession from someone so close to the inner circle of the monarchy. Why? Detective Morrison asked simply. The question opened a floodgate of emotions that Lavar had been suppressing for years. She began speaking rapidly, her words tumbling over each other as she attempted to explain the complex web of resentment and perceived injustice that had driven her to such extreme measures. Do you know what it's like to watch your stepmother become queen while you struggle to pay rent? She demanded. Camilla gets everything handed to her, lives in palaces, has servants, travels the world, while her own stepdaughter is treated like she doesn't exist. I've tried for years to get some recognition, some help, some acknowledgement that I'm family too. Chief Inspector Chun took notes while maintaining eye contact with Lavra. And you believe that attacking Princess Kate would somehow address these grievances? Kate represents everything that's wrong with this system, Lavra continued, her voice rising. She married into wealth and privilege, has everything I'll never have, and everyone loves her for it. Meanwhile, I'm forgotten, ignored, treated like an embarrassment that the family hopes will just disappear. What Lavra didn't know was that her words were being transmitted in real time to a secure conference room where several members of the royal family had gathered. Prince William had rushed to Windsor Castle upon hearing of the threat to his wife, and he sat in stunned silence as he listened to Laura's confession and motivations. Queen Camilla was also present, her face pale with shock and embarrassment. She had always known that Lavar struggled with the family dynamics that came with her marriage to then Prince Charles, but she had never imagined that these issues would escalate to attempted murder. I had no idea her feelings ran so deep, Camilla whispered to William. Lavra always seemed distant, but I thought it was just her personality. I never realized she felt so excluded from family life. William struggled to process the revelation that someone within their extended family had tried to kill his wife. Distant family or not, he replied firmly, this cannot be overlooked or excused. Kate could have been killed. Back in the interrogation room, Lavra was providing detailed information about how she had planned and executed her attack. She described months of surveillance, the careful acquisition of bomb-making materials, and her study of Kate's daily routines. The level of premeditation was both impressive and terrifying. I watched her for weeks, Lavra explained. Same path through the gardens, same time of day, same lack of close security coverage in that particular area. I knew that if I placed the device correctly and timed the detonation properly, I could eliminate her and send a message to the entire royal family. Detective Morrison interrupted her narrative. What message were you trying to send? That the forgotten members of this family deserve better treatment, Lavra said defiantly. That you can't just ignore people forever without consequences. The bomb disposal team reported that the device had been successfully neutralized, confirming that it contained enough explosive material to cause serious injury or death within a 15-foot radius. The sophistication of the construction suggested that Lavra had received assistance or had dedicated significant time to learning proper techniques. As the interrogation continued, a clearer picture emerged of a woman who felt abandoned by her family and society. Laura's art career had never taken off as she had hoped, leaving her financially unstable and increasingly bitter about the contrast between her struggles and her stepmother's luxury lifestyle. I used to dream about being part of royal functions, she admitted during a moment of vulnerability. I thought that when Dad married Camilla, maybe I'd finally have the life I deserved. Instead, I became even more invisible than before. The psychological evaluation that would follow would reveal deep-seated abandonment issues stemming from her parents, divorce, and her father's subsequent focus on his new family. But for now, the immediate priority was ensuring that no other threats existed, and determining the full extent of Laura's plot. Chief Inspector Chun asked the question that everyone was thinking. Did you act alone? Or were there others involved in planning this attack? Laura's answer would determine whether the royal family faced an isolated incident or a broader conspiracy that could threaten the very foundation of the monarchy. Lavra hesitated for a long moment before answering Chief Inspector Chun's question about potential accomplices. The weight of her confession was beginning to sink in, and she realized that her life as she knew it was effectively over. The decision to reveal everything or protect others would define her final act of defiance. "I acted alone," she said finally, though her voice lacked the conviction of her earlier statements. "This was my plan, my decision, my responsibility." Detective Morrison studied her carefully, noting the slight tremor in her voice and the way she avoided direct eye contact when making this particular claim. His years of experience in interrogation told him that Lavra was holding back information, but he decided to pursue other lines of inquiry before pressing her on potential conspirators. Meanwhile, Princess Kate was undergoing a thorough medical examination to ensure she hadn't been exposed to any chemical or biological agents during her encounter with the device. The royal physician, Dr. Margaret Thornton, conducted a comprehensive assessment while Kate tried to process the morning's traumatic events. "Physically, you're completely fine," Dr. Thornton assured her. "But I'm more concerned about the psychological impact of this experience. You've been through something that would traumatize anyone, royal or not." Kate sat on the examination table, still wearing the simple blue dress she had chosen for what was supposed to be a peaceful morning walk. "I keep thinking about how close I came to picking up that device," she admitted. "If I had been more curious if James hadn't arrived when he did ... But you didn't, and he did," Dr. Thornton reminded her gently. "Focus on what actually happened, not on what might have been." The secure conference room had filled with additional family members and senior staff as word of the attack spread through the royal household. Prince Charles had arrived from his engagement in Scotland, his face grave with concern and embarrassment. The fact that the attacker was connected to his wife's family added another layer of complexity to an already unprecedented situation. "How could we have missed this?" Charles asked the assembled security chiefs. "Lavra has been to family gatherings. She's been in our homes. How did no one recognize that she posed a threat?" Sir Richard Pemberton, the head of royal security, reviewed the file that was quickly being compiled on Lavra Parker Bowles. She had no previous criminal record, no documented history of mental illness, no red flags in any of our standard background checks. Her financial difficulties were known but not considered unusual for someone in her profession. Queen Camilla struggled with feelings of guilt and responsibility. "Perhaps if I had made more effort to include her in family activities, if I had been more attentive to her feelings... "This is not your fault," Prince William said firmly. "Lavra made a choice to attempt murder. Whatever her grievances, that choice belongs to her alone." The investigation was expanding beyond the immediate threat to examine how Lavra had gained access to bomb-making materials, and whether she had received training or assistance. Detective Inspector Morrison coordinated with counterterrorism specialists to trace the components of the explosive device. "The materials are commercially available, but would require knowledge of chemistry and electronics to combine effectively," reported Dr. James Foster, the bomb disposal expert who had neutralized the device. "This suggests either extensive research and practice or guidance from someone with expertise." Back in the interrogation room, Chief Inspector Chun was pressing Lavra on the technical aspects of her plot. "Where did you learn to construct such a sophisticated device?" Laura's resistance was beginning to crumble under sustained questioning. "Online forums," she said reluctantly. "There are communities where people share information about various topics." "Which specific forums?" Chun demanded. "We'll need to examine your computer and internet history." "I use public computers at libraries," Lavra admitted. "I'm not stupid enough to research bomb-making on my personal devices." This revelation concerned the security team because it indicated a level of operational security awareness that suggested possible training or guidance from others with criminal experience. The possibility that Lavra was part of a larger network became more credible. Detective Morrison took over the questioning. "Lavra, you've already confessed to attempted murder. If there are others involved, Cooperating with us might be your only chance for any consideration when this goes to court. For the first time since her confession began, Lavar showed genuine fear. The reality of spending decades in prison was beginning to penetrate her defiance. She looked around the sterile interrogation room and seemed to grasp fully what her actions would cost her. "There's someone," she said quietly. "Someone who helped me understand how to build the device properly." The admission sent a shock wave through the security team monitoring the interrogation. Chief Inspector Chun leaned forward, sensing a breakthrough. "Who?" Lavara took a deep breath before continuing. "His name is Marcus Webb. He's a former military explosives expert who was discharged from the army under less than honorable circumstances. I met him through online political forums where people discussed their frustrations with the government and the monarchy." Detective Morrison immediately signaled for additional officers to begin searching for Marcus Webb while the interrogation continued. "How long have you been in contact with this person?" "About 6 months, Lavar revealed. At first, it was just political discussions, complaints about inequality and privilege. But when I mentioned my personal situation with the royal family, he became very interested in helping me send a message," as he put it. The investigation was now expanding into potential domestic terrorism territory. If Marcus Webb was actively recruiting disaffected individuals and providing them with bomb-making expertise, the threat to the royal family and potentially other high-profile targets was much larger than anyone had initially realized. Chief Inspector Chun asked the critical question, "Are there others? Did Webb mention working with anyone else, or did you encounter other potential attackers in these forums?" Laura's answer would determine whether law enforcement was dealing with an isolated incident involving 2 individuals or a broader conspiracy that could threaten national security. The implications for royal protection protocols and public safety were enormous. As she prepared to respond, alarms began sounding throughout Windsor Castle. Security monitors showed multiple police units converging on a location approximately 10 miles away, where intelligence suggested Marcus Webb might be found. The race was on to determine the full scope of the threat before anyone else could be hurt. The police operation targeting Marcus Webb's suspected location unfolded with military precision at a rundown industrial complex on the outskirts of Reading. Armed response units surrounded the building while helicopter surveillance monitored all potential escape routes. Intelligence suggested that Webb was using an abandoned warehouse as a workshop for manufacturing explosive devices. Detective Inspector Morrison maintained communication with the field operation while continuing Laura's interrogation. The urgency had intensified dramatically now that they knew a trained explosives expert was potentially still at large with access to bomb-making materials. "Lavara, we need to know everything about your communications with Marcus Webb," Morrison pressed. "Lives may depend on the information you provide right now." Lavara seemed overwhelmed by the escalating situation around her confession. What had begun as a personal vendetta against Princess Kate was now revealing connections to domestic terrorism networks that she barely understood herself. "He said there were others who felt the same way I did," she admitted reluctantly. "People who believed that the royal family represented everything wrong with British society. He called us forgotten patriots who deserve better from our country." Chief Inspector Chun took detailed notes while coordinating with counterterrorism specialists. "Did he mention specific targets or timeline for other attacks?" "He talked about making a statement that would force people to pay attention," Lavra said, her voice becoming smaller as she realized the magnitude of what she had become involved in. "He said my attack on Kate would be just the beginning, that others would follow until the monarchy was forced to acknowledge people like us." At the warehouse in Reading, tactical teams were discovering the extent of Webb's operation. The building contained enough explosive materials to construct dozens of devices similar to the one Lavra had planted at Windsor Castle. Chemical analysis would later reveal that Webb had been purchasing components through multiple suppliers over several months, carefully avoiding detection by spreading his acquisitions across different vendors. "We've got a significant manufacturing operation here," reported Captain Mills from the scene. This isn't just someone helping one disgruntled person. Webb was preparing for multiple attacks. The search team also discovered detailed surveillance photos of various royal residences, government buildings, and public venues where royal family members frequently appeared. The scope of potential targets was far broader than anyone had initially suspected, but Marcus Webb himself was nowhere to be found. Evidence suggested that he had abandoned the warehouse recently, possibly after learning of Laura's arrest through news reports or other communications. Personal items and some equipment remained behind, indicating a hasty departure rather than a planned relocation. Princess Kate, now in a secure location within Windsor Castle, was being briefed on the expanding investigation. The knowledge that she had been targeted as part of a larger conspiracy rather than an isolated incident made the experience even more disturbing. How many others might be out there? She asked Sir Richard Pemberton, who was updating her on the security situation. We're working with counter-terrorism specialists to identify anyone who might have been in contact with Webb or participated in his network, Pemberton explained. Your attack was meant to be the first of several, but Laura's early capture may have disrupted their entire timeline. Prince William had arrived at Windsor Castle and was struggling to contain his anger about the threat to his wife. I want to know how someone with Laura's background was able to access explosives training and materials, he demanded during a briefing with security. Chiefs, Webb appears to have been actively recruiting individuals with grievances against the establishment, Detective Morrison explained via secure video link from the interrogation facility. He provided them with technical expertise while they provided local knowledge and access to targets. The psychological profile being developed on Marcus Webb revealed a former military explosives expert who had been discharged for insubordination and suspected extremist sympathies. His service record showed excellent technical skills but persistent problems with authority and an increasingly radical political ideology. He's exactly the type of individual that terrorist networks recruit, explained Dr. Patricia Davies, the counterterrorism psychologist consulted on the case. Technically competent, personally aggrieved, and ideologically motivated to strike at symbols of authority. Laura's interrogation was providing crucial intelligence about Webb's methods and potential network. But each revelation made it clear that the threat was far from over. He said that attacking Princess Kate would create fear and uncertainty that would spread throughout the royal family, she told her interrogators. He wanted them to feel vulnerable and hunted. The investigation team was now racing against time to identify other potential attackers before they could execute their plans. Computer specialists were analyzing Laura's internet activity and attempting to trace communications with Webb and other network members. We've identified at least 3 other individuals who were in regular contact with both Lavra and Webb through encrypted messaging applications, reported the cyber terrorism unit. We're working to determine their identities and current locations. Meanwhile, security protocols for all royal family members had been elevated to maximum alert levels. Public appearances were being canceled or heavily modified, and even private residences were receiving additional protection. The realization that the threat came from within their extended social circle rather than foreign terrorists or obvious extremists made traditional security measures less effective. Queen Camilla was grappling with the knowledge that her stepdaughter had not only attempted to murder Kate but had also become involved with dangerous criminals who threatened the entire royal family. I feel responsible for not recognizing the depth of Laura's problems, she confided to Prince Charles. You couldn't have known that her resentment would lead to this, Charles replied, though he was also questioning whether the family had failed in their obligations to Lavra and potentially others who felt excluded from royal privilege. The search for Marcus Webb was expanding nationwide, with his photograph distributed to all law enforcement agencies and border controls. But the most pressing concern was identifying and stopping other potential attackers who might already be in position to strike at royal targets. The Next 24 hours would determine whether Laura's failed attack was an isolated incident or the opening act of a coordinated campaign against the British monarchy. The breakthrough in the Marcus Webb investigation came from an unexpected source. CCTV footage from a motorway service station near Manchester showed Webb purchasing fuel and food approximately 6 hours after Laura's arrest at Windsor Castle. The timestamp indicated he was traveling north, possibly towards Scotland or attempting to reach a port for escape overseas. Detective Inspector Morrison coordinated with Greater Manchester Police to establish roadblocks and begin a systematic search of the area. Webb's military training made him dangerous, but it also made him predictable to law enforcement officers who understood tactical thinking. He's moving toward population centers where he can blend in, Morrison explained to the joint task force that had assembled to hunt Webb. But he's also carrying equipment and materials that will make extended hiding difficult. At Windsor Castle, Princess Kate was meeting with counterterrorism specialists to understand the broader threat she and her family were facing. The knowledge that Marcus Webb had been planning multiple attacks made every public appearance, and even private movement, a potential security risk. We believe Webb's network consists of approximately 5 to 7 individuals, explained Commander Sarah Walsh from Scotland Yard's Counterterrorism Division. Most appeared to be people with personal grievances against the establishment who were recruited through online forums and gradually radicalized. The psychological warfare aspect of the conspiracy was becoming clearer as investigators analyzed communications between network members. Webb had deliberately chosen targets and timing designed to create maximum fear and uncertainty within the royal family and the broader British public. The goal wasn't just to cause physical harm, Dr. Patricia Davies explained during a security briefing. Webb wanted to demonstrate that the royal family was vulnerable, that their security could be penetrated by ordinary citizens with sufficient motivation and planning. Laura Parker Bowles continued providing information about her interactions with Webb, but each revelation made it clear that she had been manipulated by someone far more sophisticated and dangerous than she had understood. He made it seem like we were just frustrated people sharing our feelings, she told her interrogators. I didn't realize until much later that he was actually planning real attacks. The investigation had identified 2 other network members, Jennifer Holmes, a former government clerk who felt unfairly dismissed from her position, and David Martinez, a struggling artist who blamed his lack of success on a system that favored the wealthy and privileged. Both had been in regular contact with Webb and had received instructions for potential attacks on royal targets. Police operations were launched simultaneously to apprehend Holmes and Martinez before they could act on any plans Webb might have given them. Holmes was found at her flat in Birmingham, where officers discovered detailed floor plans of Buckingham Palace and surveillance notes about royal protection routines. She had been watching and documenting security procedures for weeks, reported the arresting officer. Her notes show intimate knowledge of how the protection teams operate during public appearances. Martinez proved more elusive. His last known address in London had been abandoned, and neighbors reported seeing him leave with several large bags 2 days earlier. The timing suggested that he had been warned about the police investigation, possibly by Webb or through other network communications, the manhunt for both. Webb and Martinez intensified as intelligence suggested. They might be planning an imminent attack to take advantage of the chaos and confusion following Laura's failed bombing attempt. They know that security will be heightened, Commander Walsh explained. But they also know that we can't protect everyone everywhere indefinitely. Prince William was struggling with a decision about whether to maintain normal schedules or retreat into secured locations until the threat was neutralized. We can't let terrorists dictate how the royal family lives, he argued during a family meeting. If we hide, we give them exactly what they want. But Kate's perspective had been fundamentally changed by her close encounter with the explosive device. William, I came within feet of being killed, she reminded him. Our children need at least one parent who survives this crisis. The debate highlighted the impossible balance between royal duty and personal safety that had become acute in light of the conspiracy's scope. Traditional security measures were designed to protect against external threats, not attacks from individuals with insider knowledge and access to royal circles. Queen Camilla was dealing with crushing guilt about Laura's involvement, and the knowledge that family dynamics might have contributed to the radicalization process. "I keep wondering if there were signs I missed," she confided to her private secretary. "Lavra always seemed resentful, but I attributed it to typical family tensions." The psychological evaluation of Lavra was revealing a pattern that concerned counterterrorism specialists. "She represents a new type of threat," Dr. Davies explained. "Someone with legitimate access to royal circles who can be recruited and manipulated by external actors without triggering traditional security alerts." Meanwhile, Marcus Webb had abandoned his vehicle near Manchester and was believed to be traveling by public transport to avoid detection. His military training included evasion techniques that made tracking him extremely difficult, especially if he had prepared safe houses or support networks in advance. "He's not just running," Detective Morrison analyzed. "His movement pattern suggests he's heading toward a specific location where he intends to make a final stand or execute a prepared plan." The investigation team was working desperately to understand Webb's ultimate objective. The evidence suggested that Laura's attack was meant to be the opening move in a campaign designed to systematically terrorize the royal family. But Webb's specific endgame remained unclear. As night fell across Britain, law enforcement agencies were coordinating the largest manhunt in recent memory, while Royal Protection Services implemented unprecedented security measures. The next 24 hours would determine whether Webb's conspiracy could be stopped before achieving its goal of bringing terror to the heart of the British monarchy. The stakes had never been higher, and failure was not an option. The final confrontation with Marcus Webb came at dawn in Edinburgh, where intelligence analysts had correctly predicted he would attempt to target the Palace of Holyrood House. During a scheduled but secret security assessment, Webb had somehow obtained information about the inspection, viewing it as an opportunity to strike at the heart of royal authority in Scotland. Armed response units surrounded the historic palace grounds, while bomb disposal experts swept the area for any devices that might already be in place. Webb's military training was evident in his choice of location and timing, but it also made his tactics predictable to the counterterrorism specialists hunting him. Detective Inspector Morrison coordinated the operation from a mobile command center while maintaining communication with the interrogation team still questioning Jennifer Holmes. Her information had been crucial in predicting Webb's final target and preventing what could have been a catastrophic attack. Webb told us that Edinburgh represented the perfect symbol, Holmes had revealed during her questioning. He said that striking at the Scottish royal residence would demonstrate that nowhere was safe, that the monarchy couldn't protect itself even in its most secure locations. Princess Kate watched the operation unfold from the secure communications room at Windsor Castle, knowing that Webb's capture would finally end the nightmare that had begun with her morning walk through the gardens. The psychological impact of the past 48 hours had been profound, but she drew strength from the knowledge that their security teams were among the best in the world. The tactical team identified Webb's position in a maintenance building adjacent to the palace grounds, where he had apparently been constructing another explosive device using materials transported from his abandoned Manchester location. The sophistication of his equipment suggested months of preparation and planning that extended far beyond his recruitment of Lavra and the other conspirators. "Subject is armed and has access to explosive materials," reported the team leader, requesting permission to deploy non-lethal alternatives to avoid triggering any deadman switches or booby traps. Commander Walsh authorized the use of specialized gas agents designed to incapacitate suspects without causing explosions or electrical discharge that might trigger improvised explosive devices. The operation required precision, timing and coordination between multiple units to ensure Webb's capture without casualties. The assault began at exactly 6:47 a.m. with the deployment of smoke grenades and the controlled release of incapacitating agents into the maintenance building. Webb's military training served him well initially, as he had prepared defensive positions and multiple escape routes, but the overwhelming force and superior equipment of the police units eventually overcame his preparations. Webb was found unconscious but alive, surrounded by enough explosive materials to level a significant portion of the palace grounds. His capture intact was crucial for the investigation, as intelligence specialists needed to understand the full scope of his network and identify any other potential conspirators who might still pose threats. The device Webb had been constructing was far more sophisticated than the bombe lava had planted at Windsor Castle. Analysis would later reveal that it incorporated shaped charges and directional explosives, designed to maximize casualties and structural damage. If completed and successfully deployed, it could have killed dozens of people and seriously damaged one of Scotland's most important historic buildings. David Martinez, the final member of the conspiracy, was apprehended 3 hours later at Edinburgh's Waverley Station, where he had been waiting for a train to London. His arrest completed the dismantling of Webb's network and eliminated the immediate threat to royal family members. The interrogation of Webb revealed the true scope of his ambitions and the depth of his hatred for the British establishment. Unlike Lavra and the other conspirators, who had been motivated primarily by personal grievances, Webb's ideology was rooted in a desire to destabilize the entire constitutional monarchy. He viewed the royal family as symbols of everything he believed was wrong with British society. Dr. Patricia Davies explained after conducting Webb's psychological evaluation. His goal wasn't just to cause fear or extract concessions, but to create such chaos and uncertainty that the monarchy would lose public confidence and collapse. The investigation also revealed that Webb had been in contact with